The secrets of Viking navigation. More than 1,000 years ago, people from what is now Norway, Denmark, and Sweden began spreading from their native lands. These people, commonly referred to as Vikings, have a complicated historical legacy. On the one hand, there exists the popular image of Vikings as pirates and raiders who attacked villages and cities all over Europe. On the other hand, more modern studies emphasize the Vikings' cultural, artistic, and political innovations. One fact that no one doubts, however, is that the Vikings were among the greatest sailors of the ancient world. Like sailors of the past, Vikings often stayed close to the coastline, using landmarks to find their way. At the same time, their uniquely designed, flat-bottomed boats allowed the Vikings to travel far inland where other large ships could not go. What truly set the Vikings apart, however, was their ability to find their way long distances across open ocean to Britain, Iceland, Greenland, and even North America. A recent experiment has attempted to prove how they might have accomplished this amazing feat. Like all sailors of the time, the Vikings were familiar with using the sun and the stars to keep their ships headed in the right direction. In the northern seas where the Vikings sailed, however, more often than not, the sun and stars were hidden by thick clouds or fog. This fact, in combination with the violent storms and strong currents, means that it would have been almost impossible to avoid getting lost without some kind of navigational tool. An old Viking legend says that the Vikings navigated over the open ocean using a solarstein, or sunstone in English. It is these stones that might hold the key to the Vikings' mastery of navigation. Some researchers believe that sunstones were, in fact, crystals of calcite, a mineral. Using these crystals, so the theory claims, Vikings could have taken advantage of a natural phenomenon involving sunlight. When sunlight passes through the atmosphere, it becomes polarized, which simply means the light waves become oriented in a non-random way. Polarization causes the light to form a series of rings around the sun. Although this ring pattern is invisible to humans, it can be seen by some birds and other animals, even through clouds and fog. To a certain extent, the calcite crystals help humans mimic this ability to see polarization rings because the crystals are sensitive to polarization and the light passing through them becomes brighter when they are oriented the correct way. Therefore, by rotating the crystal and noticing where it was brightest, the Vikings would have been able to infer the location of the sun even on cloudy days. The sunstone theory has been around for some time, but only recently have researchers begun to test the idea. The researchers went to locations in Finland, Iceland, and Hungary, and used modern equipment on cloudy days to see if they could detect the differences in brightness predicted by the sunstone hypothesis. They were successful and were able to determine the position of the sun. They estimate that if the Vikings used the sunstones every few hours, it would indeed have been possible for them to navigate across the open sea. However, the study has its critics. The main objection is that calcite crystals are less sensitive to differences in polarization than the modern devices used in the experiment. They say it's unlikely that the human eye would be able to see the small changes in brightness needed to determine the sun's position, especially on a ship standing upright in the middle of the ocean. To really test the hypothesis, they stress, the researchers would need to use samples of calcite crystals similar to those available to the Vikings and under similar conditions. Furthermore, aside from the mention of sunstones in Viking legend, there is no archaeological evidence that the Vikings used sunstones. Alternatively, the Vikings may have used other traditional methods of navigation such as observing wave patterns or calculating depth to find their way to their destination. In short, until more evidence comes to light, the mystery of the great techniques remains unsolved.